Hello, everybody. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Today is, of course, Tuesday, May 13th, 2025. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. It's actually Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. Sorry about that. Head kind of went a little screwy there for a moment. But, anyways, hopefully everybody's having a good week. So now that it is Wednesday, of course, it's hump day. So meaning we're getting over the hump, the middle part of the week here. We're of course going to be giving people a chance to come in before we really get into what we're going to talk about tonight. Um, so hopefully everybody's getting over the hump. Looking forward to the weekend. Have some fun. As things start to get warmer, of course, we're getting that much closer to summer. We're about maybe about a week and a half away from Memorial Day, which is the unofficial start of summer for a lot of people. Usually, as schools are getting out, people are getting ready to go to the beach, this, that, and the next thing. Um, so yeah, let's see now. What else can we talk about here? Let's see. Also, a friendly reminder, of course, if you guys haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Let's see, we're just past the 2-minute mark. Um, let's see now. Alrighty then, so we're just they're just waiting. Oh, now we're coming up on 3 minutes here, so I guess I'll talk about. Let me just one more quick little thing, then I guess I'll get go over what we're gonna talk about tonight. See if I'm anybody else that maybe we haven't. See if we can take some more people to join us. Join us. Join us. Everybody come to you. Anyways. All right, and then so let me just. All right, so here's what's on tap for tonight. We got 3 articles we're gonna go over from Bleeding Fool. All of them are more or less comics related articles. So the first one they're gonna look over is how to set up a home comic book and gaming library. For those of you who might be interested in that little piece. Also, the rise and fall of nostalgia in the rise and fall of nostalgia in modern sci-fi comics. Um, and also Rare Wolverine Tale by legendary X-Men writer Chris Claremont to be reprinted. All these articles were, of course, uploaded yesterday, but we will go over them today to give see what they have to say. Some sort of look like some nice little profile pieces with some with mixing in, of course, some mixing in some mixing in some news items. Then after that, of course, we'll have the wrestling wrap up. Look at the latest WWE news. Look what happened on last night's NXT, as well as looking ahead to tonight's AEW Dynamite. We will also be, of course, at the end of the show, of course, as we always do, we'll take a look back at this day in each history. So, with all that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started then with the material at hand? Let's get into ours. As all, again, if you guys haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Let's see now. All right, so how to set up a home comic book and gaming library. So you're that one guy, girl, among a group of let's see, article by Ali Rizvi, published yesterday. So not an Avi article, just for somebody else. So you're that one guy, girl, among a group of friends who loves collecting comic books and action figures. Most comic enthusiasts, like us, start collecting at a very young age, and the collection keeps growing with our age. But have you ever thought of having your own comic book library, shelves full of action figures, and a wall full of stickers? I bet you have. After all, preserving, protecting, and growing our own resources is what we want. If you don't want your comic books, game CDs lying around everywhere in the room, we suggest making a library of your own. But as far as tips and ideas are concerned, leave that part to us. Let's see now. All right, so a 4-step guide to safeguarding your comic books. Here's a set of things you must remember if you want to create your own comic book library. 1. Choose your dry room. So I like to call my comic book store room or library a dry room, and I have some specific reasons for that. I have a feeling I know why that is, and I'm sure Ali here is going to explain it to us. I have a feeling I already know what she's going to be getting at here. You see, comic books tend to have tender papers that can warp, curl, and get wrinkly if you keep them at a place with high humidity, which is true. Like that. Well, that's the case I think with any paper product, though. Humidity is the Thanos for your comics. So for those of you who don't know, Thanos is a major bad guy in the Marvel universe. That's why I suggest keeping your comics in a cooler and dry room. I hope the quote unquote dry room part is clear now. However, dry is good, but too dry can be dangerous as well. Again, everything in moderation, right? Everything in moderation. Dry weather can make the paper crumble and crack. Try placing the library inside a dry (parentheses rather low humidity) room. It helps to have a good HVAC system, and next generation windows in the room to keep the library safe from the weather. 2. Keep away from sunlight. Sunlight is as bad to your comic book as it is for Blade. No, it doesn't put your comic books on fire, but when you keep your comic book exposed to direct sunlight, the colors and ink will fade away. As is the case with any direct light onto such materials. Hey Natsumi. Hey Mike, did you hear about the massive incident Steam had? Not really. I think I might have heard something about it, but I didn't necessarily pay attention. I probably don't pay attention to it because I'm not as deeply into the video game side of things as, like, let's say you or like Metal might be. I don't even really play anything on Steam really. So but anyways, back to the article. Oh, I see. Let's see. Direct sunlight breaks down the chemical bindings, and it can reduce the ink on the paper and make everything on the paper disappear. What's the solution then? You can try the following things. Nothing's better than building a comic book library that doesn't get direct sunlight. You can choose the same wall where the window is, which probably helps to a certain degree because then let's see. Seal the comic books inside a Mylar bag and store them. You can also have cabinets or long boxes to protect your books. If you want to put rare collectibles on display, it's best to put them inside frames with UV resistant glass. 3, shelve it. Now, for those of you who don't know, we're just going over like ideas if you wanted to create like a comic book and gaming library. Hey, Metal. Thanks for popping in. Again, a friendly reminder to everybody, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions the best of my ability. So anyways, now if you're done storing and would rather like to put some of the books on display, go for shelving units. Shelving units are easily available at department stores and big box stores to keep it smooth and finished. It's the best way to keep any stains and cosmetic damage from harming the book on the shelves. But if you get really lucky, you can go for dealer display racks. Yes, they do take up a lot of space. However, it's worth it if you want to keep it neat and clean on a top-notch display. Also, the cardboard displays racks do break down over time. If you're somewhat handy with tools, you can even build commission racks. 4, prioritize. These are hints for building your own. For those of you who came in late, these are just hints for. These are hints for building your own comic book and gaming library. Just in case you guys were wondering. 4. Prioritize. I understand that you want to showcase all your comic book muscles. Whether you have the earliest pieces like Action Comics or Batman Year One, you'll want to display those at the front. While that urge to showcase all of your big guns is understandable, it's difficult to showcase everything at once if you have too little space. So, also, you don't want your comic books looking cramped all the time. We suggest you go for a lean and organized look with your comic books when you put them on display. Instead of a forced display, choose a handful of books that really deserve the front row. Keep some of your hidden gems, as long as you keep them organized and clean and in a safer space. That's all that matters. Conclusion. Always remember to store your comic books upright when you're doing bagging and boarding your comic books. Go ahead and place them inside a box where you can keep them upright. Yes, you can use cardboard boxes, but choosing cardboard is difficult. It's susceptible to water, mildew damage, and mold. Also, it gets difficult to maintain them if you're from flood-prone areas. Be always prepared for water emergencies and keep your comic books in a room that faces less water. All right, so there we go with that one. That's the first of the 3 articles we're, of course, looking over tonight. We'll get ready to do the next one here. Again, feel free to comment and or ask questions if anything grabs your attention. And if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. So with that, let's move on to the second article that we're going over tonight here, the rise and fall of nostalgia in sci-fi and comic books. This article is by Corey Schilling, published yesterday. So we got some artists, some columnists here that we haven't profiled as much, but let's see what this guy has to say. So, sci-fi and comics have become powerful forms of storytelling. They explore bold ideas, complex worlds, and characters that speak to modern audiences. These genres feel vibrant today thanks to better technology, sharper writing, and diverse voices. Alongside all this progress, there's been a steady return to the past. Nostalgia has taken hold, bringing back old characters, styles, and storylines. While this approach has led to major hits, it's also raised questions about creativity and the future of the genres. Looking closer at this trend helps explain why nostalgia became so popular and why some fans are beginning to feel it has been overused. Let's see if you guys are saying anything yet. Oh. The rise of nostalgia in sci-fi and comics. Over the last decade, there's been a strong push to bring back older sci-fi and comic book titles. Reboots of popular film series and remakes of classic comics have flooded the markets. That's true. Characters who once defined past generations return with updated storylines but familiar traits. Much of this interest comes from fans who grew up with these stories and now have the power to support them financially. Studios and publishers know old favorites still hold value. That's why franchises of Marvel and DC Comics, X-Men, Spider-Man, Justice League, and Superman, among others, continue to produce new content using long-established tropes. Plenty of everyday products, games, and activities now feature nostalgic branding tied to beloved franchises. You can find throwback editions of board games based on classic movies, limited edition sneakers inspired by 80s cartoons, and retro-styled gaming consoles that recreate early digital experiences. Let's see. Casinos have also embraced nostalgia, even as they move into digital spaces. Many online platforms incorporate old school aesthetics and classic pop culture references. Themes inspired by iconic superhero franchises now appear across online slot games, blackjack, and poker, blending familiar imagery with modern gameplay. The same approach is seen in collectible card games, where special editions often highlight vintage characters or artwork from earlier eras. Hmm. Why are creators leaning into nostalgia? Familiar stories and visuals create an immediate emotional connection, making new products easier to market and helping audiences feel a sense of trust and comfort with the experience. You bring something back that's familiar to people, you know. Now I don't know if the whole idea of updating, maybe sometimes, instead of updating it, just doing another new generation of it, so characters you might have grown up with, let's say maybe they had kids or something like that, right? Let's say back in the late 80s, early 90s, you were watching Star Trek: The Next Generation. So rather than still seeing, or re-seeing Wesley Crusher as a incredibly intelligent teenager, what would his life be like as a officer? Or even better yet, taking, maybe spinning it off into a series where he's going around with a traveling around the universe, right? In one of Will Wheaton's last episodes on the main series, where he decided to take off with the anyways, why nostalgia became so popular. The emotional power of nostalgia makes it a strong tool for creators. When people reconnect with something they enjoyed at a younger age, it brings back memories that are hard to forget. That emotional tie often helps fans invest more in what they're watching and reading. Marketing also plays a key role. Familiar faces are easier to promote than brand new ones, which is true. Which is why when I've talked about this before, that's why a lot of times they like to use established rather than creating a new character when they want to try to push something woke or whatever. Um, that's why they That's why they just change up an established character, right? Rather than creating a whole new character, because again, it makes more of an impact than a new character would. We continue on here. Marketing. Okay, yeah. So we. Let's see. New movie starring a well-known character will likely draw more attention than one with a fresh lead, even if the story is as strong. The timing has also helped. With uncertain global events and fast-changing technology, familiar stories offer comfort. They provide a sense of safety, reminding people of a simpler time, which can feel grounding when things seem unstable. The problem with too much nostalgia. Relying on the past for new content can be limiting. The stories may lose their edge when creators repeatedly use the same settings, plot points, and characters. Audiences begin to notice when new entries feel too much like copies of older ones. Some people might argue that's kind of what's happening at Marvel right now with the Amazing Spider-Man storylines, right? From Tom Brevoort. They just keep regurgitating the same scenarios over and over again. Not all fans are satisfied with this trend. Some want more than just a modern version of something they've seen. They want new challenges, characters, and with diverse backgrounds and fresh perspectives that better reflect today's world. Creative risks are often pushed aside for proven success. As a result, stories might lack originality even when production quality is high. The ideas may feel recycled, which weakens the franchise's long-term value. Many creators have voiced concerns about these limits. Writers and artists sometimes feel stuck following strict guidelines that align their work with a brand's past. This can make it difficult to introduce bold concepts or explore unfamiliar ideas. Signs that the trend might be fading. Recently, a few major studios and publishers have shifted their focus. Instead of relying only on old favorites, they explore original stories with new leads and unique settings. Viewers and readers are responding well to this change. Titles like The Mandalorian introduce new characters while slowly separating from legacy figures. Comics from independent publishers are gaining attention for introducing complex, fresh characters without ties to long-running series. These efforts show that building new fan bases is possible without heavy reliance on previous success. There's also growing support for creators from the underrepresented groups who tell stories that don't fit the usual mold. These creators are shaping the genre's future by introducing new voices and diverse cultural perspectives. Their work reflects a changing world, and fans are interested in it. I don't know if I'd say. I mean, it depends upon what they're talking about. You know, if you mean they're more, let's say, like LGBTQ writers, more, more like writers and artists of different ethnic backgrounds, and yeah, you do see more of those. But at particularly the problem with the major two, though, the major two companies, the big two, Marvel and DC, is that instead of creating original stories, they tend to try to change established characters to fit these new molds, and that part's not getting over with people. You might find some people who, if they are creating new characters in these molds that they're trying to sell you, who might be interested, but maybe not. But again, it's still more of a fringe element. It's not always a good idea to try to force a fringe element on a majority. Anyways, some nostalgic content will always have a place, mainly when used with care. However, the shift toward original storytelling shows that creators and fans are ready for something different. It's not about forgetting the past, but building on it in smarter, more meaningful ways. Final thoughts. So this final thoughts from Corey Schilling right here. Nostalgia gave sci-fi and comics a powerful push, reminding fans why they loved these genres in the first place. But when stories lean too hard on the past, they risk losing what makes them feel alive. Some fresh air is needed, and with so many creative voices ready to be heard, now might be the perfect time to move forward. All right, so there we go with that one. So we have one more article we're going to go over tonight. Where are we at on time here? All right, we're making good time, I guess, here. Oh, this is basically the last story we're gonna do tonight. Unless this one is like super quick or something like that. But anyways, Rare Wolverine Tale by legendary X-Men writer Chris Claremont to be reprinted. Article by Jameson Ashley, published May 13, 2025. Yesterday, of course, Jameson is somebody we've read some of his articles before. There's the story right there. Let's see. All right, so last month it was announced that X-Men by Chris Claremont, Prelude to a Future Past #1, a one-shot releasing this July, would publish a rare story Chris Claremont wrote for the Marvel-made Paragon Collection, Chris Claremont Premiere Bundle, a limited edition prestige hardcover and comic book set released in 2021. X-Men collectors will be happy to know that the Wolverine tie-in comic, physically included in the Marvel-made Paragon Collection Chris Claremont Premiere Bundle, will also be reprinted in Wolverine by Chris Claremont #1 one-shot, releasing this August. Written by Claremont and drawn by acclaimed artist Tom Riley, the thrilling standalone story expands on Logan's redemptive saga in Japan and ties directly into Wolverine's classic 1982 series, one of Claremont's most celebrated works. In addition, Wolverine by Chris Claremont #1 will include bonus material spotlighting Chris Claremont's 50-plus years in wow, 50 years. He must be. Well, I think we did see a picture of him. I think was it yesterday or the other day when when we were looking at that one article where it had all these legendary creators. All right. Wolverine's archenemy strikes arch nemesis strikes in one of the rarest X-Men tales of all by legendary writer Chris Claremont. The story sees a savage Sabretooth catching his prey by surprise, determined to claim the life of Mariko, the woman Logan loves. Wolverine may be the best there is, but Victor Creed is the worst. Yet even if Sabretooth can get the upper hand on his bitter rival, Logan has one thing he doesn't: friends. Get ready for one of the bloodiest fights you've ever seen in X-Men, in which Creed shares some shocking insights with Marvel's mutants. The comic hits stores in August, but should be pre-ordered at your local comic shop now to make sure that they have a copy for you. Alrighty then. So there we go with that one. That one was kind of a quickie. Let me see here. Where are we at on time here? Let's see. Let me take a quick peek around. See, 36 minutes. I just want to go. Well, let me at least take a little quick peek around, see if maybe, just maybe, it might be another little quickie somewhere, either on here or one of the other sites. My poker face. La 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 la. La 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 la. See. Just checking myself here. All right. See. Again, if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Okay, this looks like a little. All right. I think this one might be of some interest. So I just found an article on MeTV Tunes that I'm going to go over here. This will definitely be this should take us at least a few more minutes here, so more into the time. So probably will be the last article we do tonight. All right, so here we go. The Me TV Tunes Guide to Termite Terrace. Turns out there really were termites. Article published today by Me TV Tunes staff. So, in our stories about Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies, we bring up Termite Terrace quite a bit. Termite Terrace was the nickname for the tiny clapboard building that housed Leon Schlesinger Productions and later Warner Brothers. Leon Schlesinger, of course, was the original producer for a lot of the early Looney Tunes, basically from their inception in the 30s through into up until 1944 when Schlesinger had decided to retire and basically sold off his production studio to Warner Brothers. Became Warner Brothers Animation. The animators who worked there gave the studio building the nickname because it was infested with termites and other insects. While the original building was condemned and demolished, when we talk about Termite Terrace, we are referring to the animators and creatives who worked there to bring us Looney Tunes cartoons. This list is a guide to some of the most notable members of Termite Terrace and their contributions to the early days of the golden age of animation. So this wasn't just in reference to an actual tower, to an actual place, but it was also in reference to the group of people who worked on a lot of the material. Let's look at the lives and work, so we can see how their individual contributions helped refine Looney Tunes into the legendary cartoon empire we still love today. Leon Schlesinger. If you recognize this guy's name, it's because he's on all the title cards of the early Looney Tunes and Merry Melody shorts. Leon Schlesinger was originally a film title card producer who pitched an animation contract to Warner Brothers. He had no previous experience in animation. Schlesinger assembled a highly talented team that would create Looney Tunes. Like on a lot of the pre-1945 material, you would have probably seen his name at the bottom, where it says, produced by Leon Schlesinger Studios. Hugh Harman and Rudolph Ising. The guys who started it all, the dynamic duo, created Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies and produced the cartoons from 1930 to 1933 before moving on to MGM cartoons. They first met working for Walt Disney and later mentored Bill Hanna of Hanna-Barbera. Now, Harman and Ising, of course, gave us Bosco originally Bosco the Talking Kid, and then they took Bosco with them over to MGM and actually changed them up, later. They also gave us, of course, Foxy Fox as well. Bosco was probably their most well-known contribution. Isidore Fritz Frayling. After Harman and Ising left, several new animators were brought in, including Fritz Frayling. He is widely considered to be the most prolific Looney Tunes director because he created over 300 cartoons. More importantly, when Warner Brothers closed the animation studios in 1963, Frayling co-created a new animation studio, DePatie Frayling Enterprises. DFE, of course, is the animation studio that eventually gave us like a lot of the Pink Panther, the Pink Panther and his set of cartoons. Pink Panther, the Inspector, the Aardvark, among others. So a lot of their work came from DePatie Frayling Enterprises. In an effort to save Looney Tunes, he created or co-created some of the greatest Looney Tunes stars, including Bugs Bunny, Porky Pig, Tweety, Sylvester, Yosemite Sam, and Granny. Yeah, of all of them, Porky Pig was actually the first creation. Bob Clampett. Clampett originally worked for Harmon and Ising, but when he joined Leon Schlesinger Productions, when they left, he started in the Termite Terrace at the same time as Fritz Frayling and Tex Avery. He is best remembered for creating Tweety, or Orson as he was originally called. Clampett's cartoons were remembered for their surreal feeling combined with super energetic characters. After 15 years of 84 cartoons with Warner Brothers, Clampett ended up in a, quote, "you can't fire me, I quit" situation with Schlesinger's replacement, Edward Seltzer. Clampett went on to work for Screen Gems and went on to create some of the first children's television shows with his Beanie series. I believe that's as in Beanie and Cecil, I believe, if I understand correctly. Hey, Rex. Thanks for popping in. If you haven't already, you can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So with that being said, let's continue on with the article here. Let's see. Fred Tex Avery, a man who's worked with a number of some of the more well-known creators. But anyway, Tex Avery began his animation career at Walter Lantz Productions, working his way up from inker to storyboard artist to director. Of course, that was the late 20s, early 30s. That was some of the work he did for Lantz at that time. Included, of course, some work on the earlier Oswald the Lucky Rabbit cartoons. He was then hired as a director for Leon Schlesinger, was off to the races, creating classic characters like Daffy Duck, who, of course, debuted in Porky's Duck Hunt in 1937, and Elmer Fudd. Avery is largely credited with finessing the Looney Tunes style and using animation to stretch the boundaries of reality. A lot of the Cartoon Network produced series, The Wacky World of Tex Avery, focused in on a lot of his zany style, as it were. After 60 cartoons and enough of Leon Schlesinger, Avery left Warner Brothers for MGM, where he went on to develop his signature characters like the Wolf and Droopy Dog. Yeah, Tex Avery started out with Walter Lantz, then went to Leon Schlesinger, then went to MGM, and then I think he did by, I think it was maybe the 60s. He actually ended up going back to think he actually did go back to Walter Lantz there towards the end of his career as well. So Chuck Jones. Chuck Jones joined the team a little later in 1933, beginning as an assistant animator. He was paired with Tex Avery, but the Avery unit needed more office space. This need for space is what led to Schlesinger renting out a small building that became known as the Termite Terrace. Many animators had the goal of creating Looney Tunes and Merry Melody cartoons to emulate Disney cartoons. While Avery and Jones wanted their cartoons to outshine and dominate Disney cartoons, Jones co-developed Bugs Bunny and created Michigan J. Frog, Marvin the Martian, Pepe Le Pew, Wile E. Coyote, and the Roadrunner. He worked at Warner Brothers from 1938 to 1964 and produced hundreds of cartoons, 2 of which won Academy Awards. And of course, after he left, you guys might have seen his credits on a few MGM cartoons in the late 60s, early 70s, because he would go on to work for them after leaving Warner Brothers. Hey, Fishozo. Thanks for popping in there. Michael Maltese. Michael Maltese gets a real photo because, like Leon Schlesinger, he appeared in You Ought to Be in Pictures as the angry security guard. His animation career had fairly typical beginnings, starting out as a cell painter, then an assistant animator, and an in-betweener. But his career took a turn when he was promoted to storyman, because everyone at Termite Terrace always laughed at his jokes. Quickly, Maltese became the head writer at Warner Brothers Cartoons and wrote many of the cartoons from 1937 to 1958. 37 was, of course, the year where they started focusing more on Porky Pig, and you started seeing, like, Daffy Duck made his debut that year, among others. Most of Fritz Frayling and Chuck Jones cartoons were written by Maltese. After Warner Brothers, he wrote for Hanna-Barbera, writing cartoons like The Yogi Bear Show, The Flintstones, and Wacky Races. Robert McKimson. Before getting into McKimson's illustrious animation career, how about a fun fact? His first drawing job was illustrating his mother's first children's book, Mouse Tales. Cute. Like other animators, he began his career at Disney and then was hired by Harman and Ising to work on Looney Tunes. Like Bob Clampett, he took Harman and Ising leaving as an opportunity to begin directing his own cartoons. He is credited as the creator of Foghorn Leghorn, Tasmanian Devil, and Speedy Gonzales. Mel Blanc, the voice, of course, of Looney Tunes. You argue that he and June Foray are basically the 2 voices of Looney Tunes, just about all the characters. Mel. He's an honorary member of Termite Terrace in our book, yet he was in the trenches with the animators. He joined Leon Schlesinger Productions in 1936 and voiced nearly all the Looney Tunes characters, including Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Tweety, Sylvester, Yosemite Sam, Foghorn Leghorn, the Tasmanian Devil, Porky Pig, and later Elmer Fudd. Yeah, he took over for Elmer after the 1959 passing of Elmer's original voice actor, Arthur Q. Bryan. He had an exclusive contract with Warner Brothers from 1946 to 1960, but afterward, as the Termite Terrorist animators went off in their different directions, many of them would hire Blank again for their later cartoons like the Flintstones and the Jetsons. Of course, Mel Blanc on let's see, I think he was one of the ones who provided the voice of Barney Rubble in the Flintstones, and then Elroy Jetson in the Jetsons. Ben Hardaway and Cal Dalton. Probably not as well known as some of the others, but Hardaway is probably known more for his time at Walter Lantz. I'm sure they'll probably bring that up here, but let's take a look. So Hardaway and Dalton were a directing team, with Hardaway focused mostly on the story and Dalton focused on the animation. In 1937, Fritz Frayling briefly left Warner Brothers for MGM, and Hardaway and Dalton used the opportunity to begin directing together to fill the gap Frayling left behind. Out of the 17 cartoons they directed together, 2 of their most memorable cartoons were Catnip College and Harem Scarum. After Fritz Frayling returned to Warner Brothers, Hardaway and Dalton were sent back to their original departments, and both soon left Warner Brothers. Hardaway went to Walter Lantz Productions and wrote and occasionally voiced Woody Woodpecker cartoons. And Dalton worked as an animator on Popeye cartoons and TV movies like Dr. Seuss and Dr. Seuss on the Loose and Journey Back to Oz. Watch Bugs Bunny and Friends on MeTV Tunes weekdays at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central, 6 a.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central, 5 Pacific. And Sundays at 12 noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, and 9 a.m. Pacific. All right, then. So that's all we got for the news articles tonight. So now what we'll do is we'll get ready to move on to the wrestling wrap up here. As of course, we're going to first take a look back to last night's NXT. Talk about what happened there as they continue to build towards their Battleground pay-per-view in just under a couple weeks here. So on last night's NXT, the non-title match, NXT champion Oba Fleming defeated Charlie Dempsey. After Charlie Dempsey had apparently been running his mouth about how he could stretch him out, as Charlie Dempsey tried to take the NXT title opportunity that Miles Bourne had earned last week from him. After the two of them had been confronted by, of course, Ethan Page in a promo where Page was saying that Bourne was not ready. Talk more about that in a moment. Wes Lee defeated Tony D'Angelo, who was distracted by somebody coming on screen, something about a Rizzo hideout, whatever. Rizzo safe house. but then allowing Wesley to hit the cardiac kick on D'Angelo and get the 1-2-3. Miles Bourne defeated Ethan Page in a one-on-one match, in a match that was set up early in the night when Page had confronted Miles Bourne, claiming that he should just give him his title opportunity, because Page claimed that Bourne was not ready. Bourne proved him wrong in this match, defeating Ethan Page. Thea Hall defeated Tatum Paxley in just over 4.5 minutes by DQ, when as Thea Hall had a submission hold locked on Tatum Paxley. Paxley began digging into Hall's eyes, which eventually got her disqualified. Then she continued to attack her after the match, only for security to come out and separate the two. And in the main event saw Jordan Grace team with Stephanie Vaquer, who the two of them will be facing each other at Battleground, in a prelude to Battleground, to fend off the challenge to basically defeat Fatal Influence duo of Fallon Henley and JC Jane, as this match was set up earlier in the night in a bit of a promo battle, in which some heated words by all four ladies, but ended up in this matchup. Jordan Grace delivering the Grace driver on Fallon Henley to get the 1-2-3. So let's see. Now that happened all on last night's NXT. So looking ahead to tonight's AEW Dynamite, they continue to build towards Double or Nothing coming up on the 25th. On May 25th here. On tonight's show, coming from the Now Arena at Hoffman Estates, Illinois, Adam Page and Will Ospreay will team up to face the Don Callis family of Josh Alexander and Konosuke Takeshita, of course, the current New Japan Never Openweight champion. Zach Gowen makes his in-ring return in a match that was set up last week, as he faces Ricochet. As last week when they were in Detroit, Zach Gowen was there with his kids watching the show, for Ricochet to come out and start to confront Gowen. It eventually led to a confrontation where, of course, Ricochet stole Gowen's prosthetic leg. For those of you who don't remember, Zach Gowen was a wrestler from about 20 years ago. He's somebody who made a professional wrestling career despite the fact that he was born without a leg. He wrestled with a prosthetic leg for much of his career. Some of you might remember him from his time in WWE. He also wrestled in TNA as Tenacious Z. In a AEW World Tag Team Eliminator match, the Hurt Syndicate looks to fend off the potential challenge of Top Flight, Dante and Darius Martin, as we've talked about before with the Eliminator matches. This is more of a challenge to earn a shot at the potential. So if the challengers defeat them in an Eliminator match, then they'll get a shot. In another Eliminator match, this one for the Women's World title, Toni Storm will once again fend off the challenge of three wrestlers, as recently crowned New Japan Strong Women's Champion Azumi along with Mina Shirakawa and the returning Sky Blue, all seek to earn a shot at Toni Storm's women's title. And in the main event, we'll see in a steel cage match Jon Moxley defend the AEW World Title against Samoa Joe. So with that being said, now we'll get ready now to move on to this day in niche history. We do have just a couple of items tonight. So with today being Wednesday, May the 14th, 2025, let's take a look back at this day in niche history. So first off, we're going to head back 40 years ago. As on this date 40 years ago today, the first issue of Marvel's ElfQuest from their Epic imprint went on sale on this date back in 1985, 40 years ago today. The story was called Fire and Fight. It was plotted by Richard Pini, and written, drawn, and lettered by Wendy Pini. So the Pinis, who were recently at along with Chris Claremont, were recently at a comic convention. I think it's C2E2, I think was what it was called. So on this date, 40 years ago today, the Pinis ElfQuest #1 went on sale on this date back in 1985 under Marvel's Epic imprint. And now moving ahead to 1995, on this date in 1995, 30 years ago today, WWE held its first In Your House pay-per-view, which was their first attempt at monthly pay-per-views. Not as big as the Big Four back then, but kind of, but still with ways to kind of move storylines along. The main event of the show, of course, one of the other aspects of these In Your House pay-per-views too earlier on is fans would have a chance. They'd be in a contest to see who would get a chance at winning a house. Of course, the pre-show saw Jean-Pierre Lafitte. Let's see. By the way, this first In Your House was from the Onondaga War Memorial Center in Syracuse, New York. On the free-for-all pre-show, Jean-Paul Lafitte defeated Bob Holly. The main event saw Diesel defeat Psycho Sid to retain the WWF Championship. Jerry Lawler defeated Bret Hart. Owen Hart and Yokozuna retained the WWF World Tag Team titles over the Smoking Guns. In a King of the Ring qualifying match, Mabel defeated Adam Bomb. In a 2-on-1 handicap match, Razor Ramon defeated Jeff Jarrett and the Roadie, who would become later known as Road Dogg, Jesse James. And then Bret Hart early in the evening defeated Hakushi. So there we go with that. So with that, then, I thank everybody for being here tonight. Hope everybody enjoyed the show. We'll be back here, of course, tomorrow with more niche news. Also, this Sunday, I'll be joined by Metal from the Vomitorium. We'll be looking at comics that went on sale in May of 1940. May of 1940. This week we'll be focusing in on Holyoke. We'll be looking at Crash Comics Adventures, Volume 1, Issue 3, and Whirlwind Comics, Volume 1, Volume 1, Issue 2. We'll be looking at such features as Strongman, Cyclone, Blue Streak, and maybe we'll even throw in a Jane Drake detective story in there for you as well. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.